I'm not going to take too much of your time, Mr. West. Everyone spoke highly of you, so this step of the interview process is just for me to meet you,
Yeah, right.
Say I asked you some questions. I trust you have a good head on your shoulders.
No complaints.
Right. We do a lot of international business, so, just real quick. Humor me. Which is closer, the moon or Mumbai?
The moon.
How?
Because I can see the moon. I can't see Mumbai. Welcome to Real Talk with Mark West, a podcast about owning your shit and playing through life.
I do's what I want.
I do's what I want. If people would just accept that, we could get along. Come for me if you want to. I ain't scared. Shit, I bike in Chicago. I feel like I'm Neo in the Matrix, but I suck at it. I'm dodging right into the bullets, you know?
This was good therapy.
I'm your host, Mark West. Hello, everyone. It's me, Mark. And welcome to Real Talk with Mark West, where we are trying to have better conversations with ourselves so we can have better conversations with others. Of course, no one said we can't have a little fun along the way. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a few things I would like us to talk about this week. A homeless man accosted me the other day. He said I wasn't cool and that he was going to slit my throat. Then my friend Donnie, a student at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, spoke to me about how I should be treating people. And after all that, I realized I might need to change my perspective. So from now on, I'm going to be a gold digger. But first, I want to introduce a new segment of the show. It's not really new since it's just me talking, but I want to put a name on it. I have a lot of thoughts that run through my mind all throughout the day, and I don't have a lot of people who want to go to these places with me, so I often feel like my brain is constipated. I have to get my thoughts out. So I want to tell you what I've been thinking, and I'm going to have some friends on to talk with them about what I've been thinking, and hopefully we can bring some regularity to what's going on inside my head. So this first portion is simply called, Hey Mark, what you thinking? The catch is, I can't just tell you what I'm thinking. No, where's the fun in that? You have to ask. You have to ask me. Woo me. Somebody, please ask me what I'm thinking.
Hey Mark, what you thinking?
Thanks for asking, Chaska. I'm thinking about self-fulfilling prophecies. A year and a half ago, I came to terms with the fact that I was a self-saboteur. I had to acknowledge that many of the terrible things that were happening in my life were as a result of my choices. I figured as long as I changed my choices, then everything else would be okay. But it never dawned on me that perhaps my choices were motivated by my beliefs. What I believe about myself and what I believe about other people. With self-fulfilling prophecies, what we believe about ourselves and each other can change how we act towards ourselves and others, which then can change the experiences we have with others, which then feeds into our beliefs about ourselves and others. The way that we believe the world to be can sometimes come true, both good and bad. Also, the way that we believe ourselves to be can sometimes come true. That one I know for sure. We've been talking about emotional currency and understanding ourselves so we can better understand others. The golden rule says, Treat others as you would like to be treated. It's something I've honestly tried to live by my whole life. But sometimes people would interpret my behavior as withholding and passive-aggressive, when in my mind, I was self-regulating, treating others as I would want to be treated. When I called myself practicing the golden rule, or being a good person, I found myself putting up with things that only caused me pain. And that made it harder to treat people as I would want to be treated. I think the golden rule is gone. I think it's forgotten. I definitely forgot it. People do not know how to treat each other. So what do we do now?
I think that's a shame that you think that it's kind of being lost on folks. I don't know how much I would agree with that.
My friend Donnie Stevens is a grad student at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, studying child and family trauma. I actually met him not too long ago at the bar next door to my house, and we've hung out a couple of times, and I had him over one day to talk about my thoughts on the golden rule, and this idea that I'm supposed to treat people a certain way to attract the same kind of treatment back. It wasn't sitting right with me. Not anymore. So, I'm reversing it. I've been using this golden rule as some kind of way to earn clout from society or to prove I'm a good person, but I'm not seeing the return on my investment I've been guaranteed. So, either I'm doing it wrong, or somebody lied, and has been lying for a very long time. Or maybe there's more to it. I don't always want to treat people right, especially when I've been mistreated. But I know, for me personally, shit won't change till I get up and wash my ass. So I want to know, is there a way to bring some self-compassion to the golden rule?
Trauma comes from a Greek word that means unhealed wound. And I'm trying to recognize my personal triggers, my personal habits as the results of unhealed wounds. Perhaps, ways that I react to situations, ways that I interpret situations, and even relationships I might routinely fall into can be a result of unhealed wounds. And one area I wanted to discuss was the golden rule. Big thing that I heard a lot growing up: treat others as you would like to be treated. And every philosophy, every major religion kind of clings to this idea. If you want to be treated a certain way by the world, treat the world that way. But a lot of people, A, haven't heard of that, B, don't believe in that, and C, also see it as a weakness. I've been in situations in which I was like, well, yeah, when you did that, that upset me. Well, why didn't you get angry? Why didn't you lash out? Oh, because I'm not that person. And they saw that as me like suppressing or an unhealthy tactic. And I was like, no, I recognize that I was angry, but I made my anger my own. And I responded in a way in which in the same compassionate way that I would have wanted from somebody else. How do you feel about that statement? I believe it's unpopular. I don't just believe, I know it's unpopular, even in myself. I see how I've gotten away from that. Like any kind of phone call, like I'm calling the city, I'm calling Comcast, I'm guns blazing. Because I'm going to be like, I don't care who you are. You work for a shitty company. You deserve everything I'm giving you. But I realize that will just put them on the defensive. And I get the same sass and anger that I'm feeding other people. So is there any merit to the golden rule? Where has it gone? And why do you think it's been forgotten?
I would like to believe that the golden rule still holds up, but I can definitely see, how that's just an optimistic opinion.
I believe the golden rule is still in the back of people's minds, but it's very finite. It has a limit. It's like, I'll treat you how I want to be treated until you treat me a certain way. and then you get whatever you deserve.
It's tough to do. It is really tough to do. It starts from, I feel like, yourself, and from within, and trying to figure out, a lot of things about yourself in order to be able to do that. But you had talked about past experiences, and I think that, part of the unhealed wounds that you had talked about come from deciding what to not hold on to anymore growing up. I think is a big one, or things that you've had to learn growing up, or things that you had to learn to protect yourself and to be, I guess, in heavy quotes, a normal person, as much as normal meant to anybody growing up, culturally otherwise. But, it is a lot of work to know some of those things that are now not just impacting yourself negatively, but other people negatively, and how to recognize that is a lot of work as well. And then to challenge yourself to try and overcome that, and to also feel safe that you can not hold on to that anymore, move on, in however that looks like, and then still feel safe afterwards that and fill it with something else. I think in a lot of ways, that you had talked about kind of like calling people on the phone and so on and so forth, for some people to protect themselves. I think that can be a very knee-jerk reaction, is you're hurting me, I'm going to raise my voice. Do I need to? Or, was I taught that way? It could be a lot of things, but I think that's the big thing, is treating each situation as multi-layered as it deserves, and not thinking it's one thing every time, or I have the answer for this, but that it is bred in a lot of different experiences that everybody's had, differently, of course, but
There was something Donnie said that struck a chord with me. He said to treat each situation as multi-layered as they deserve, and not thinking it's one thing each time. That reminded me of episode 2 of My Circus, My Monkeys, when I was first addressing this need to constantly protect myself. I always found myself facing any difficult situation with the assumption and expectation that things were not going to go well, and I prepared myself for that. I got ready to argue my point, to resist, to defend myself. Each and every time. No one agrees with blind trust or blind faith, but we so easily subscribe to blind cynicism and blind mistrust. Without knowing anything about a person, I assume the worst about them. Social trust has eroded. Many of us are making decisions about the world absent of any real evidence to back our decision. Blindly mistrusting people can cut us off from opportunities. Opportunities to learn from them. Opportunities to connect and build relationships. I didn't always used to be this on edge. Is there a way for people who have known routine hurt to trust people again, to open themselves up to healthy connections with other people again?
I think they can, but they're of course going to need help. There's going to be a lot more triggering things. There's going to be a lot more things that come up. There's going to be a lot more things, culturally that are going to be different, that people just aren't going to understand. There's going to be way things are going to be said. And then, that's just the front half. And then you're also, how you even apologize, how you even try to reconcile, and so I think it's counterintuitive to ask for whoever is the hurt party to be the one that just does the change or just does the work in this situation, because it kind of, to me, alleviates some of the necessary work and empathy for whoever they're dealing with or whoever they're talking to have any responsibility in that conversation. Of course, there's the time old, it always takes two. If it's only up to that person or that population who is hurting to be responsible for it, I don't think it'll ever get solved. I don't think, it's not a one-way street. I don't think it ever will be. I think it's really easy to just look at somebody, I guess. This is where I diverge. This is where kind of my mind went on a tangent. I think it's very easy to look at somebody not treating somebody else well and go, why are you just not following the golden rule? And not only do I think that sometimes that can be mean, because maybe they have a lot of stuff from their own experiences that are coming up that has stopped them from being trustworthy, or, you know, has to some degree also made it very hard to form social relationships, you know. And I think it is very easy for somebody to just go, well, just treat them right, just be good, just be better. And I don't think it's fair to those population. I think it's starting to become more of another kind of, I guess, dated, for the sake of a better, you know, lack of a better term. I feel like in the past, a lot of people were just like, just be good, or just put up with it, or just do better, or, you know, it's very simple, without understanding, you know, this person can't right now. Maybe they would love to, you know, maybe that's the ideal world, but to hold everybody up to that same, like, let's call it the golden threshold, it isn't here. To have everybody at that same place is just idealistic, and I think impossible. The people that don't meet it, or like are not there, and even the people that are above that threshold, I would ask, I'm glad that you're treating people well, but also, what are you going through? You know, have you just buried everything that you're going through just to personify this ideal, and are actually not dealing with things healthily? There's a lot of things, you know, that I would think of that would concern me, and how far, I guess, it gets pushed.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, what I'm hearing is it's more important to treat ourselves the way we want to be treated.
I think that is very important. I think that it's very important for a lot of reasons. One, when you are treating yourself well and you have a kind of a platform to go from, you then can tell when you aren't being treated well easier. It's going to be easier for you to realize, okay, I'm in a toxic relationship. Okay, I am being talked to in a way that I don't like, instead of just putting up with it or not being able to recognize it. I think that treating yourself well also helps a lot of people lose a lot of stress and shed a lot of that weight and burden, and it'll also change your perspective. So I'm treating myself well, that, you know, the way that I talk to myself even gone from negative to positive, and I can help myself get out of a lot of situations. My perspective on a lot of things come up and change. I personally certainly know what that's like when you feel overwhelmed, and coming from a codependent relationship, being able to pause whatever's happening and go, I'm going to remove myself, taking that responsibility, and then potentially going into another room and being your own helping hand. And that's not always possible. I understand that. But from my experience, it's, you know, being able to find that has been very powerful in that sense, because otherwise it was dependent on, I need the helping hand from somebody else. I don't know how to give it to me. I don't know what that looks like. I'm afraid of it. You know, I'm getting emotional. I don't, you know, and if that person denies me, we're talking a whole host of other issues that come up. So having that amount of strength in yourself, you know, being able to do some of those things for yourself is also a cultural problem. You know, I can only speak to my own, but I can only imagine the differences and the changes culture to culture that would present new issues for not being able to reach that. And then when it comes to that, also having different solutions for coming out of that as well. It's not certainly a one solution fixes everything.
Oh, for sure.
I've been stuck in a spiral. Every encounter with people is viewed as a chess match where the goal is to get what I want from the other person. People are always an obstacle to me getting what I want or having peace of mind. I treat people based on how I feel. About them, about the situation, about myself, which only leads to me disappointing myself. I like the image of the stick and the piñata. I felt like the piñata, so I behaved like the stick. I didn't realize my negative feelings about myself were actually linked to how I was treating myself. I treat others better than I treat myself, and I call it the golden rule. I'm reversing the golden rule. From now on, I'm treating myself the way that I deserve to be treated. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. That's going to be very hard for me because I'm honestly not used to speaking kindly to myself. But I do know the first rule of panning for gold is you don't go out looking for dirt. There are plenty of things I could have done better. There's plenty of negative and disappointing things I could say and think about myself. But why? I need to stop digging for dirt and start digging for gold. When I find it in myself, it'll probably be easier to find it in other people. But I first have to start noticing it. I told you about the homeless man who wanted to cramp my style, right? Oh my jeebus, y'all. Here in Chicago, you gotta be ready for anything. I live not too far from the expressway, and the overpass by me is a sheltered spot that, is a steady favorite for the homeless community. And I have lived over here for almost 6 years now, so the neighborhood knows me. And I have never had issues with any of my neighbors. But one day this past week, as I'm walking past this guy on my way home from a lovely lunch at Kuma's Corner, he's pacing the sidewalk in a giant coat and shredded pants. Like, I can see both your legs plain as day. So something in me clicked that I should probably be on guard with this person. They're not entirely in the same reality as I am, considering the inches of snow on the ground. So as I walk past him, I see he's trying to talk to me. Now, I've never been one against giving anyone at least 5 seconds of my time. Who am I to deny the world the pleasure of my company? So I take my earphones out and hear him say, "You're really awesome." And me, never being one to rebuff a compliment, I responded, "Thank you. Oh my goodness, thanks. You too. You're awesome too." And continued on my merry way, uplifted by this random stranger's compliment. Now, after a minute, I sense a disturbance in the force and decide to turn down my music and hear this guy's voice still booming behind me. And seconds later, he's beside me, running in the street to keep up with me. So again, I take out my earbuds to hear him say, I was being sarcastic. I'd already figured. I'd figured that since, dude didn't know me from a can of paint. So I plainly responded, "That's cool," and continued walking. I take out my earbuds and put them in my pocket this time. Not that I wanted to listen to what he was saying, but I needed to make sure I was fully aware of what was happening around me. And that's when he says, "It's not cool. And you're not cool." Ooh, y'all, I wanted to turn on my heels, but I keep walking. And then he says, "And you're lucky I don't slit your throat right now." So now, I gotta be real. There was a flood of emotions going through me at this moment. Fear, anger, anxiety, overwhelm. But the last thing I was gonna do in this moment was run. Because I ain't never been scared, and you already know, I've been done told you, I ain't no bitch. Now, it would not have made me feel good at all to prove anything to someone in his position. I was conscious enough to recognize that his anger wasn't directed at me. I represented an idea in his head. I knew he was just looking for some sort of escape from his suffering. Even so, every part of me wanted to tell this dude, "You better try Jesus, motherfucker, but don't you dare try me, 'cause I throw hands." I was afraid. But I didn't want to run. I didn't know this guy. And people are actually crazy. This Chicago. We real ones out here. Folks don't play. Everything in me wanted to turn around and make him pay for the vulnerable feelings he was stirring up. But then I stopped. I went home to myself and took ownership over how I was feeling. Once my wounded child was calm, I was able to think clearly of a plan. My home was 2 blocks away, so my plan was to keep walking, but be alert. Then, not even a second later, I hear, and I look to my left to see a lady riding with her husband. Her window is down. She gives me a thumbs up from the window with an inquiring face, as if to ask, "You okay?" I shake my head. No, I'm not okay, because I don't know a way out of this situation that doesn't pull me back into who I don't want to be. Without a moment's hesitation, she beckons me over, and as if I was expecting them, I hop in the back seat and leave my friend yelling on the sidewalk. I stopped and searched for a way out that preserved who I wanted to be in this situation. Oh, I definitely could have fixed the problem, and he would have gotten the point, but it wouldn't have been the energy I want to put out. And who knows? I may have gotten the point and died. But for the record, I'm cool as fuck. I was doing so much work to treat others how I wanted to be treated, to invest love and positivity in the world in hopes it'll give it back. But I see now that that's not the point. That's not why any of us are here. The point is just to love yourself, to take care of your wounded child. That's your only responsibility, to be a gold digger. I can't change the way I see and think about the world until I change the way I see and think about myself. What do you believe about what happened? What do you believe about why it happened to you? I know how things may look, but are you sure that that's the truth? Which is closer, the moon or Mumbai? What do you think about all this? I'd really like to know. Reach out and talk to me about it. www.heymarkwest.com. I want to say a special thank you to my guest, Donnie, for taking time to talk with me this week, as well as Chaska, all the way from London, for getting the conversation started at the top of the show. I've actually been having a hard time recognizing those old habits that no longer serve me. There are ideas and routines and habits I've adopted to cope with difficult situations that are normal to me now, but they no longer serve or better my situation. I'm having someone on next week to talk about how to better recognize coping mechanisms I've picked up and call me, but might actually be old, unhealed wounds. Until then, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you got something out of it, please leave a review, follow and subscribe, and of course, share this episode with a friend. It takes just a couple seconds, but the impact and my gratitude are immeasurable, as every little bit helps in growing awareness. To find more episodes, or to talk back to me about your journey, visit heymarkwest.com. There you'll find my social media links, as well as additional resources for support. I'm Mark West, and until next time, don't forget, you are a rock star. You've got this. Join me next week for Real Talk with Mark West.